No.
And the strap breaks and you hit someone.
Anyways, are you ready for another amazing?
No, I'm not. I'm not listening. I'm just kidding.
But it's about Luigi and King Boo. It's like the best pairing ever.
I play the first level down and beat Luigi again.
Did you change the name?
No.
Okay. This fanfiction is called King Boo x Luigi Lemon Not Safe for Work PvP One Shot by YoSnap. Actually, you know, this username seems familiar.
Yes, they're the first level.
Like, I've heard of it before, YoSnap.
First level.
Could be, actually.
Summary. Yeah. I wrote this in like November 2019 and it sucks, lol. I'm sorry that the ending is so shit, it's embarrassing. Okay, here we go. King Boo waited for him on the bed, grinning widely. Luigi didn't know how he had wound up here, but he was here, and he was crawling onto the other side of the mattress in only his underwear. He was nervous, of course, but being able to be here to his own accord was reason enough to stay. He laid back and looked over to the goal at his side. King Boo had a flirty expression on, letting his tongue bob out between his teeth. He was more than excited to have his favorite plaything here in front of him, so vulnerable and submissive to whatever it was that he had desired. Right now he had desired for Luigi to wear something a little more suited to his taste, so he raised a hand and worked a little bit of magic. Luigi felt the fabric around his hips change shape, swapping his regular skinnies to a tighter, frilly pair of green
pants.
He
said something different. You skipped it.
Yeah, he said that, it's me.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think I'm a bit shorter than him, actually.
Yeah, the models are different, actually.
It's the Mario model. Yeah.
Anyways, Luigi felt the fabric around his hips change shape, swapping his regular skinnies to a tighter, frilly pair of green panties. King Boo smiled, enjoying the new view of all the curves that Luigi hid away from everyone. The king pulled himself closer, eagerly anticipating getting to paw all over his soft little pillow. He leaned over, swinging his arm to the far side of Luigi. Having decided to spare him from the pinning he had originally intended, he got close, staring up at him with only lust on his mind. He touched his tongue against Luigi's collar, slowly allowing it to fit its way up the length of his trembling neck and all along his jaw and cheek. King Boo marked it with a couple gentle kisses on his face, getting a bit nearer to his mouth. Luigi found himself liking it more than he had wanted to. He turned to face King Boo, lifting his arms to wrap around him as he initiated another tender kiss. No more tea. Emotions got the better of him when he physically agreed to kiss further, involving more and more of their mouths with every new encounter. Luigi's human tongue tapped nervously against King Boo's cold ghost tongue, which returned the favor by lightly grazing it around it wherever it could reach. Luigi indulged in the way that King Boo's lips felt against his and how his saliva tasted, allowing himself to slowly forget that he was in the clutches of someone that hated him. King Boo liked the feeling of his warmth. He didn't get many chances to experience these temperatures, and the heat that Luigi was sharing filled him with a delight that he hadn't known he wanted. They kissed more, King Boo using the opportunity to... What's so funny?
Nothing.
To explore and entice his friend to get what he wanted. He could feel through his mouth the little moan that Luigi let go, which he took as begging for more feeling. He rubbed up and down his body. Luigi pulled him close to have more contact between them, which King Boo interpreted as his want for what he had in store. He pulled himself up from Luigi. He gave a sharp grin with bedroom eyes that was reflected with a tiny, loving smile. King Boo sat up between Luigi's legs, reaching his hands near the waistband of the clothing he had chosen earlier. He tugged on them a small bit, inching them down along the length of Luigi's curves, all the while not breaking eye contact. Luigi blushed, raising up his pelvis and bringing his thighs together for the lingerie to be removed. King Boo moved them to expose Luigi's privates, taking a moment to glance at it all for a preview of what he was going to get into. He worked them over the knees and scurried them down the rest of his legs, retrieving them completely and carelessly tossing them behind himself, leaning a tad bit forward again with a teasing smile on his face. Luigi turned his head a bit and blushed, coyly smiling back.
Did you see the line? The star was already done.
King Boo delicately ran his tongue against his leg and winked at Luigi.
It shows the line.
Shut up, I'm reading a fanfiction!
A
He
moment.
pulled himself closer to Luigi's body, brushing his hands from his knees up all along his thighs to get them out of his way. He held his hands. Shut the fuck up!
Attack when you're not talking at the moment.
What?
Nothing.
He held his hands on the fleshiest part of them, trying to decide whether he would rather tease with feather-light touches or assert himself by squeezing and massaging them. He was torn, since he had imagined that playing so close to Luigi's bits alone would make him squirm, but he really would have wanted to get him to squeal if he could. They were face to face, staring into each other's eyes, both ready to start moving. King Boo wanted a little more, so he leaned in and pressed his mouth against Luigi's, and they spent a moment caressing each other's tongues again. Boo used the distraction to creep his hand from Luigi's thigh to the length of him, touching light enough to barely tickle him. He rubbed gently, feeling Luigi's reaction on his tongue to this, getting more contact between them when he did press hard against his other thigh. He rubbed him up some more, trying to fish out any ounces of anticipation that Luigi was hiding from him. King Boo pulled away, while their saliva erected a bridge between the lovers. He held himself, brushing against Luigi and tapping his rounds, which made him quiver. King Boo liked that enough to repeat it, flicking them back and forth and almost giggling to himself as he felt the little pulses. He started to feel tingles from the contact himself, so he figured that it was time to change exactly how he was exciting him. He rested his head upon his partner, teasing himself with the slow pace he was using to initiate. Luigi breathed in the foreignness of the temperature and the size of it, concentrating on the sensations it was instilling. When he decided that he showed enough, King Boo took almost all of it back, leaving only a tiny bit of himself with Luigi.
What's going on? Look, I'm falling.
Yeah, you're falling back to the planet.
Yeah, I want to die. Can I die?
I wanna die! Yikes! Yeah, that was... Yikes.
Well, if Taro is gone, you lose anyway.
Yeah, can I die?
No. You have to
what
wait.
the fuck? I'm gonna go
No!
back. I can't.
What the
When he decided that he showed enough, King Boo took almost all of it back, leaving only a tiny bit of himself with Luigi, which made him feel a little bit empty. Oh god! Holy shit!
Sleeping? Or sleepy?
He tried again a couple more times, deciding to be a fair more generous. He liked it a lot and giggled at the feeling, using the moments to rest his hand on Luigi's legs.
Yeah.
Luigi braced himself, since such laughter was always something to be wary of. He pushed and he pulled, going over it again and again. Luigi liked the contact he received and the feeling of the pressure that built in him. King Boo pushed the legs more out of the way, enticing the other buttons as he played with his toy. Luigi monitored the speed and studied King Boo's movements so that his body could respond accordingly. He sighed. He felt the king's dominance and the way that he was feeling it, and he moved his hips around a bit to help them both feel different parts of each other. King Boo grinned at this, perhaps convincing himself a little much at how much Luigi was enjoying it, at least for that very moment. Luigi wouldn't admit to himself that he had also wanted to see his lover squirm, so that reaction encouraged him to give more and enjoy the movements. Luigi breathed, occasionally letting tiny sounds escape him. Oh, King Boo thought up something and figured to go ahead and try it. He smiled wide, letting his big tongue fall out of his mouth. He let it flop and dribble and winked at Luigi before skirting it over the skin of his pet. Luigi tensed at it, especially when it slivered its way to the parts of him he wouldn't want any others to touch. King Boo pressed it against these areas in particular and fondled them to taste the tiny twitches that he hungered for. Luigi didn't care that he was being covered in slobber. It felt good to him, really good. He snuggled himself over that happiness and wriggled out more pleasure from the feeling of the bed below him. King Boo giggled to himself, fixing
What are you doing?
fixing his leverage to allow his movements to get just as intense as he wanted. He plunged in. He plunged in and ripped himself away with far more force than he had been using. Luigi yelped, the pressure against him building quickly and making him have to compose himself to hang on any longer. He grabbed the sheets, but he couldn't help the vocality that it mustered. King Boo laughed aloud and indulged in the way that Luigi was acting. He touched more with his hands and tasted more with his tongue. And he forced through more and more and more. Luigi took every last bit of it, unable to fully control his body shaking and his throat's exclamations. Luigi squirmed and quivered. He moaned and he yelped. King Boo cackled and drooled, very ready to claim the prize he so coveted, pounding more and more to ravage his lover of it. Luigi panted. He braced himself. The stimulation was more than he could resist any longer. He felt King Boo stroke against all of the best nerves, and he could tell that his time was here. He tried to speak, to say something that he wanted to get out before he fell, so that he could help quench the thirst of his conqueror. He tried, to no full avail. He slapped his hand over his own face at the effort. He tensed and he shook and he gasped before he screamed, King Boo! The sound escorted all of his hot submission from his being, which King Boo absolutely devoured until his own wild desperation poured out to fill the need. The cool excitement leaked from the man's flesh and smothered over the king's sword. He pulled it from him, leaving the emptiness pulsing from the intensity of it all. King Boo quivered, savoring the elation of achieving his goal. He had a silly, satisfied grin on his face as he pulled himself onto Luigi, who was still breathing himself back to stability. He shyly kissed Luigi's lips, and the two blissfully exchanged the gesture. King Boo reeled back and flashed a flirty expression, to which Luigi responded with a cute smile. King Boo felt a tug on his heartstrings, and he blushed a small bit. He locked loving eyes with Luigi and laughed at the center of his chest. Luigi caressed his lover's cheek with his hand, then sat up and kissed King Boo's forehead. He nuzzled into his chest and held him close, and the two appreciated not having to be enemies for a while. The end.
Huh.
Huh. Whoa. Well, it was pretty well written, actually. I'm gonna give this a cool